Alright guys, Lqgend again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. One of the key rivalries so far in Black Ops 7 has been the Paris Gentlemates versus the Los Angeles Thieves. We know that Ghosty and Envoy, formerly of that Thieves team last season, dropped for this year in favour of aBeZy and Kenny. They're now on the Gentlemates, and when they played so far this season, they had a pretty dominant victory indeed. Some questions therefore on whether Thieves need to make a change. Could they bring in a Luca? Could they do something else in the upcoming weeks if things do not go to plan at Major 1? Or was there another player who simply slipped through their fingers? They played a series of 8, well, none of the players did. Scrap, HyDra, Envoy, all on one team alongside Sib. Sib dropped 62, and maybe Scrap is wondering whether he could have been a better teammate. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into today. This was from G2 Minnesota as well, because the upcoming games that Rocker have to play when they do get back underway, they've got the Falcons, they've got the Ravens. We'll see. Ravens, they ain't looking so good as it stands. Falcons have been, I wouldn't say better than expected. I think, they've been 2-2. They had a series against Boston, which they may not have won if not for the Celium Snake-ins, so it kind of is what it is. But yeah, they've kind of beaten who they're expected to beat, Falcons, and lost to who they're expected to lose to. Their 2 losses were to OpTic and to Thieves, and we'll discuss a little bit more on Thieves in a second. I think the G2 team, they very much impressed at that 75k monster kickoff right before the season began. Since then, when the season's actually been underway, they've been somewhat underwhelming, but not to say that they couldn't turn it around. I think that Kremp's looked really good as well. Of course, the team of Kremp, Mumba, Skies, and Estriel so far. Skies has looked pretty good with the sniper, although not quite good enough elsewhere, I would suggest. At least that's what the numbers suggest so far. But, can turn it around for sure in the new year. Now, TJ to the Surge. We're pretty sure that's still going to happen. It's not yet been confirmed as I'm recording this video here on the morning of Boxing Day. But TJ going from the Bush to the Surge, and, when Former was listening to this, he was like, okay, yeah, that's pretty clear that TJ is out of there, even though it's not been made official yet. I did just want to share this, because watching that Bush video, I thought it was really cool to see a couple of comments like this on that documentary that they did after winning that most recent Challengers Cup. People saying they've watched competitive COD for a long time and this is some of the best content they've seen, but I love comments like this. I knew nothing about competitive COD a month ago and now I'm completely hooked. These guys got something special going on here, right? And I think this is just fantastic for what the Bush Gaming boys and the Barstool guys are doing for Call of Duty right now, because as I say, competitive COD is a pretty niche area, let alone tier 2 competitive COD. But there's so much passion in this space, and it's such a great community that everyone knows it. If you guys have ever been to one of the events, I'm sure you had a great time. And just following the scene is a pleasure. It's so entertaining. And for new people to get exposed to that, and some of the excitement of the WWE of esports, whatever you want to say, is great stuff. So, these guys will get involved because they'll be watching the Barstool guys and they'll be watching that team and excited about their progress and following it in Tier 2. And it's a great story, right? Trying to get from Tier 2 into the Pro League and all the implications of that. But also the community so tight-knit. Those Barstool guys, they're speaking with a lot of the creators. They're also watching the games, Obviously, some of these guys they've watched TJ play for the Bush Gaming for a couple of weeks. Now he's going to the Pro League. So how does he get on, right? Does he do well? People are going to follow that story. So, yeah, this is what made things tick at the end of the day. I just thought it was really nice to see some comments such as that. Now, on a similar kind of vein, really, there was this interesting comment that Zuma made on Fire40. So, if you guys know, well, Fire's on the Bush Gaming now, right? He joined instead of TJ. TJ gone to Surge, Capsule, Spart, Proloot, they needed one, they brought in Fire. Now, Fire has been around quite a long time. I think he went to Rebrand at some point, but he went back to Fire. Initially, his gamer tag was Fire40, and you guys may remember Fire40 if you've been watching for about 5 or so years, because unfortunately, he became the face of players brought in to bad teams, underperforming and getting clowned on and getting dropped back again to challenges never to be seen again, effectively. Now, look, Fire, I hope he gets an opportunity to come back because he's worked hard for it. I know that he's been through some difficult personal stuff as well. And yeah, I'd like to see him get another opportunity. I think he's definitely in the conversation for that to happen after fighting his way back through challenges over the last few years. And to be honest, his performances when he did come in weren't even that bad when I look at them in hindsight. There definitely have been weaker stints of players. But unfortunately for Fire, he was kind of the victim of circumstance, really. He came into this awful Paris Legion team back in the Cold War season. He was subbed in. They went, in Major 1, they went 2-4 with him on the team. They were totally dysfunctional. He was kind of meant to be like the role player on the team to make things tick and do the dirty work and stuff like that. And, his numbers were not great. If you look at, this, to be fair, this number, this is way better than I remember, if you know what I mean, right? Because yes, he had some stinker maps in there and people were roasting him like Firepoint 40 and all this stuff. And then he got dropped, and then it was like, well, because people were trying to find the next Simp. That was all what was happening at this point, because Simp had just come in 2019, and of course won champs for that year. The following year, he was, second at the World Championship, still dominating things. And people were looking to try and find the next kind of guard in challenges, and if players came in and didn't deliver, then they would be effectively put to the scrap heap and never to be seen again. Now, his card in Major 2 was weaker, but in Search, it's kind of incredible to think about that both of Fire 40's cards, he had a purple stat, Objective per 10 in Hardpoint in Stage 1, and then Search and Destroy First Blood Rate in Stage 2. So, just looking back at these cards, it's kind of remarkable to me, because people think of Fire 40, he was at least described at the time as, when he came to the Pro League COD, he had an awful stint, one of the worst ever. And yeah, it wasn't great. Some of the individual performances weren't great. His respawn KD here isn't good for the second stage. Then he got dropped, but it was nowhere near as bad, I think, as it was deemed to be at the time, certainly given what we've seen since. He played at the World Cup last year, not too many series here, and, that was actually the 2024 World Cup, and then the most recent World Cup, he played pretty well, actually, when he stepped into that, 5 Fears team or whatever, for that tournament. So maybe Fire can make his way back in. Zuma says he thinks he was pretty harshly done by, shall we say. A couple of other clips I wanted to share as well, including this one here from Attach, talking about the age limits, because we've talked in recent days about how to improve the CDL, what changes to make. If I was in charge, the one thing I would try to do immediately would be to switch up the age limit and find a way for players when they're 16 to play in challenges. Not in the CDL, I think it's okay in the CDL for it to be 18, but the fact that challenges is also 18 is just so limiting to our potential. As Attach says, back in the day, he was going to LANs at 14 years of age. Now, maybe that shouldn't happen or couldn't happen or whatever, parental guidance or parental sign-offs or whatever would be necessary to make it work. But yeah, Activision in kind of 2016 decided this was going to be 18 plus and that was it. And I think they've limited an awful lot over the last few years in terms of also the development of new talent. If you're a 14-year-old kid, back in the day, you'd try and play COD. Nowadays, I don't know, what do you play? Fortnite, Rocket League, or something like that. And as well you should, to be honest. If I had a kid and he was that age, I wouldn't be telling him to play Call of Duty because it's going to be 4 years until he can even hope to get discovered. So anyway, conversation probably for another day, but I'll share Attach's perspective. Couple of other clips though to share, especially this one from Sib. So, they were playing the other day, Christmas Eve I think this was, they were playing some 8s, and well, these 8s teams are kind of remarkable. So if I zoom in, you guys might not be able to see them, but this 8s team is Exnid, Purge, I think Nasty and Kismet. So you've kind of got 2 of the Falcons boys, 2 of the Boston boys, and then the other team is Sib with HyDra, Envoy, and Scrap. So I don't really know who came up with these teams because it's a pretty outrageous team. But Sib has an absolute pop-off takeover moment here at the end of this clip on the Colossus. And then he gets loud in a way that I've not heard for a long time or really before. And he drops 62 eliminations in this map to take a pretty comfortable win. But it's pretty crazy that this team ended up being effectively the Los Angeles Thieves, but with no Kenny, and instead a different AR in that spot. Now, not to say that this is a great 8s team, right? Just in a actual real-life match play situation, to be a team, you might imagine that Sib and Scrap may overlap to a certain extent, but it's certainly something that's worth thinking about.
Bro, is this guy good?
Yo, I'm here to collect my Fire 40 propaganda.
Yeah, do I think I'll start?
He was done dirty, bro.
I'll start. I think he was done dirty when he came in. I think he needs another shot.
Yeah.
I think he's an AR player that got put on a sub because he was good with the sub in MW 2019, but that game, everyone ran a sub, especially at the beginning. And then he's been quiet, bro. He keeps to himself. He knows how people perceive him and community sentiment. So he kind of just lets his gameplay talk for him, but he doesn't get a lot of shine because there's just a lot of other players out there that get a lot more hype.
Microphone muted.
Hey,
But he's really good, man.
The age limit definitely sucks. I mean, the best thing for COD is if they made like if you could make COD.
One close, big nade kill.
I don't know what I don't know what rating Fortnite is or what age rating. I don't know what it's called, mature. But if you could do that for COD and not make it a mature game,
this map,
and make it like a teen game or whatever Fortnite is, like that would be insane. Because then that would allow people that are like 16 years old to be competing, 15 years old to be competing. Because when I was on the come up, I was able to compete at tournament. I mean, you could compete at tournaments at any age.
How are you gonna get insta-traded?
In 2014 in Ghost, I don't know if you guys remember, what was that team called? It was literally like little kids playing on the team in UMG Philly. And their parents were there. They had to sign the waiver for them to play, but they were like actually 8 to 10 years old playing at tournaments.
LAT 1 in Vanguard? No, I was coaching subliners during Vanguard.
Like I was fit 14, 15, 16, going to the tournaments as well. So like doing that.
Go everywhere, bro. 1 mid, 2 mid.
Hostile personnel have captured the
Nice.
On time, 1 bullet. On time, 1 bullet. Yeah, 1 bullet. Good shit. Good call. He was. Yep. Another one weak now. Keep whipping. Keep whipping.
Wow. Got it.
Yep. Still getting bit. That's a really ace nade. Oh my god! Nice. What fucking shit, Dante?
Keep up the effort.
62 fucking hell, yo. Fuck is right.
It's very interesting of this to happen just a couple of weeks on from that big Major 1 qualifier we saw between the Gentlemates and Thieves, where Thieves got absolutely slammed by that roster, right? So Ghosty had a 2.1, Envoy, of course, and Sib had a great series as well. He had a 1.45 in that series. Neptune had a 1.1. Scrap tried to hold his own, and Kenny, aBeZy, and HyDra all had pretty terrible times. Now, again, Thieves, they've probably looked better in practice than they did in this particular series, but what matters, of course, is actually how you play when it comes to proper matches, and certainly LAN will be very, very relevant as well. Now, Sib was signed to Gentlemates. We don't know how much the boys on Gentlemates are getting paid, probably something pretty reasonable. And look, he was probably never going to be going to Thieves in the first place. He had an underwhelming year last year. Sib individually was still okay towards the end of the season, but Cloud9 was a bit of a disaster. But Sib has been linked to top quality teams in recent years. I mean, there were rumours that actually Falcons, they wanted Sib, but Sib was concerned that if he went there, then they would just drop him for Scrap next year. That was at least a rumour, because it's plausible anyway that Falcons, after Scrap and HyDra's contract are done with Thieves after this season, they may be able to give them an offer that they cannot refuse. We'll see about that. But there were some rumours on that, of course, and also Sib wasn't long ago. People were talking about OpTic Sib, right? When the whole Pred stuff, with Huke and all this was happening. Scump had retired, and there was some talk about, okay, could it be Dashy and Sib maybe alongside Pred and Shotzzy, because you would then combine 2 of the Seattle Surge guys at the time with 2 of the OpTic guys. That was a possibility. Of course, that never happened. They brought in Kenny, and that was the right call, right? Kenny was incredibly important for OpTic for the time that they had together, but currently Kenny's level has been concerning to many LA Thieves fans. Look, if you had to make me guess who's going to be a better slayer this year between Sib and Kenny, there is only one answer. Of course, that does not make a whole team, and Scrap and Sib's, let's say, playstyles, you could imagine could be quite similar, could be quite overlapping, but also Ghosty, what he brought to Thieves and what he still brings to Gentlemates is that if they need him to play the objective, he will be the objective guy, full stop. He was our objective player of the year last year in the Breaking Point Awards, and for good reason. He was number 1 in basically every single objective stat line when it came to respawn modes last year. That gave Scrap and HyDra the freedom. Kenny isn't naturally quite that same type of player. So, look, I'm not going to say that Thieves should go and get Sib instead of Kenny, not like they would be able to anyway, right? They have made their bed in some sense, and Gentlemates have signed that the guys that they wanted. That's going to be how it is for a little bit of time at the very least. Of course, the question ready for Thieves is, look, dropping Envoy with the opportunity to get aBeZy, understandable in the circumstances given FaZe blew it up. But the question that many would have was it the right call to get rid of Ghosty? Look, Kenny was not their ideal replacement. They looked at getting Cell, they looked at getting Drazah. I still think it can work with Kenny. I don't think it's over for Thieves by any means. But the question for many is, was dropping Ghosty the right call? And yeah, Sib was frying in that 8 series, dropping 62. Scrap seems pretty impressed, but maybe, he wouldn't be the solution. Maybe they had the guy that they should have had the whole time right on their team last season. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.